Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. This is Daphne 2 Presents the Guess Who Hour. I'm so excited to get all my friends back on here. This is the Scooby Gang right here.
Yeah.
You guys want to introduce yourselves real quick? Let's start with Miree.
Hi, I'm Miree. I run the Velma Daisy Dinkleaf fan page on Instagram. I'm finally off hiatus, and I just post content, Velma content, whenever.
Steve.
Hi all, I'm Steve and I run Mysteries for Faithful Foes. I'm going to be returning from a leave, but I am going to be back in action again. And I post Scooby on content, love Scooby, and I'm happy to be back here.
Happy to have you back on. And Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard, and so I do a couple things. I'm a musician, and I sing and release music, and I'm also a Scooby fanatic and carry that over into my fashion choices. And I also write, so yeah.
People who listen to the show may be familiar with you already. You've been my theme song the first few episodes.
Yeah, and those episodes absolutely fantastic. I loved Jorn. It was so much fun to listen to.
Well, we are here to discuss Guess Who today. I'm excited. It's been a while. I looked and we did our first episode in August of last year. I can't believe it's been so long.
That is wild.
Yeah, it's been a while.
For anybody not familiar, we started on Instagram, doing Instagram lives, and now this will be our third episode talking about Guess Who. So you can go back and find those on Instagram if you want to, but it's not essential. So we are here to talk about the Cursed Cabinet of Professor Mads Markson. I had to read it to make sure I got the name right. And then we got When Urkelbots Go Bad and The Fastest Fast Food Fiend. So interesting collection of episodes, right? I was watching it on HBO Max and they are all over the place. I don't know why they have it out of order for some reason, but what do you guys think of the Professor Mads Markson episode? Let's jump right in. What do you think, Velma?
I really enjoyed like the art of it. I thought that it was really fun. I really like so in the other Scooby series, What's New Scooby-Doo, they have a Vegas themed one as well, which has my heart. I think it's called Riva Ras Regas. Amazing. But I like what they did with the Vegas again. I like how they put Penn Teller into the as the casted guest. So I really enjoyed it. It was a good one.
Are you a Penn Teller fan?
No, I actually have never heard of them really before this, outside of like, I think I've heard of their show. Like they had like a show where they like critique magic, and I think that's pretty much all I know about them.
What about Steve and Richard? Are you guys familiar with Penn Teller?
Yeah, no, I had not heard of them before, but I was really interested to see what happened, as I was with a lot of these guest stars, which I know something we've been talking about as a common theme in each episode, but like a lot of these guest stars are either ones that are, they've either been in a lot of things that a lot of people are aware of, or something that maybe you're not as familiar with. These were, again, a very new set of guest stars for me. But I really, I think it's fun because it gets you ingrained in culture and like what's new and like updated. And I thought that they worked really well with the episode, and I liked their sense of humor and how they were fit into this episode. We'll get into more later.
I agree that they really did a good job on fitting the guest artist with this setting this time. And I've caught a couple episodes of Fool Us, which is on I think it's on the CW, I don't remember, but I've caught a couple endings to the episodes as I'm sort of browsing the channels. But yeah,
so I'm pretty much the only one who's a fan. That I watched their show Bullshit for years. I don't know, it doesn't seem like any of you guys have seen it. That's they pretty much like talk about it's kind of controversial because they talk about like common things like product labeling or like I don't know, they just call everything bullshit. They're so quick to call everything bullshit. It's hilarious. Definitely, it's a Showtime series. Definitely watch it if you haven't. But they do have very strong opinion. Be warned. Like Penn, of course, he's the only one that talks. So it's just him being loud and spreading his opinions for 9 seasons. It's hilarious.
That's fun.
So Steve, what do you think of this episode overall?
I liked it, and for me, I know this is one of this is the point in the series where I got more interested in it, and this is where I got, this is my first episode where it felt like they weren't. It felt like they were still testing things out, but it felt a little bit to me a little bit more like they found some things that were starting to work, some staples with the characters, and I agree with Miree, the atmosphere was great. I really like the setting of Vegas, and it's in my backdrop right now. But I really liked they had a lot of, they definitely looked to Vegas for a lot of the color popping like lights and atmosphere of the episode. And just the colors they used for like the villains, even especially like the ghost. He was like bright pink, which but it's a fun episode, and it does a lot of like references, which a lot of the series does, a lot of references to previous Scooby series. There's one directly to Decoy for Dognapper with the medicine man in the background. So they do a lot of cool stuff with just throwing references in subtle ways, making the use of the atmosphere. And I think this is a very atmospheric episode where the guests really were able to work with the gang pretty well, especially Shaggy and Scooby.
Every moment felt tailor-made for Penn and Teller to be there. Like when they ran with the gang, they looked like they were part of the gang. What do you think of this episode, Richard?
I agree with Steve that it really was sort of the first episode where I was like, okay, this is really engaging. And there were like the last set of episodes we covered were okay, but they felt a little miscellaneous. And I actually remember before this show started in 2019, actually the first thing I saw of this series was the storyboards for the first encounter with the ghost. And I was just remember watching it and being so excited because it just looks so well done. And it's like funny that, like Steve, you said, like it's the first episode that really got you engaged because it just looked really well done. And yeah, I really loved the scenery. Some things about the plot, as in most of the episodes, moved really fast, and the settings were a little hard to tell whether you were inside or outside of the theater, actually. But I really did enjoy this episode, and how there was multiple villains in a sense.
What do you guys think of how it ended up being? Like we had Teller being the old man the whole time. Did you expect it to happen? Who did you expect to be the foe before it was unmasked? Miree, what do you think?
It's funny that you ask these questions like every time, because I never I've only recently started like cluing in that I should probably also try and solve the mystery when I'm watching this. I don't know what it is, but I genuinely just watch it like, what's gonna happen? I like that that they have like this, is it called a red herring? Like it's someone who is just like there, but like not the villain.
Right.
Like that girl, that really funny. So, but like, I don't know if I knew. I kind of had the suspicion that there was going to be like this third character that was going to show up at the end, but that's not how Scooby really works. So yeah, I was pretty pleased with it, like being Teller in the end.
We've had it happen a few times. I feel like the biggest example was the What's New Scooby-Doo episode. You know what I'm talking about, where it's like the Native American guy was unmasked, but it was actually a military general.
Right.
You know what I'm talking
about? The Walking Bird and the small monster, yeah.
Yeah, they went completely left field, which is where for a second I feel like this episode was going, but they completely, eschewed our expectations when the Fred caught that girl in his trap. He's like, we caught him. Oh no, who is this?
Yeah.
And there's in Mystery incorporated the series. I think there's this one episode where they capture the villain and Velma's like, okay, who is this? You know what? This doesn't count. This isn't a mystery.
Right.
Who did it?
Yeah. This one does not count.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what episode it is, but I don't remember. But I know what you're talking about. I do remember.
She's just so frustrated. None of it made sense. None of it had anything to do with them, and she didn't like that.
I know there's also, I know for sure the episode I'm thinking of that also sounds like that is in What's His Scooby-Doo. She does the centaur episode. And she says that about the woman who they didn't see her at all during the episode really, and she's like, what is this?
Right.
She said almost the exact, I think she said almost the exact same thing in that episode too.
I love that. It's like the viewer knows who it is, but Velma, they never even met her. That's funny.
Yeah, she gets really annoyed because she's like, I'm supposed to solve the mystery. And again, we talk about how Velma takes a centerfold, I think, a lot in this series, is one of the main characters who I think, and I think I said on the DVD cover, she's like one of the main, I haven't looked at my DVD lately, but isn't she like the main, like
she's the focus.
In the front, the focus. She has a magnifying glass kind of trying to draw attention to her too, even. So
yeah, in the advertisement, she is front and center in the advertisement.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
With Daphne kind of taking like, or Fred kind of taking a back seat, and then Daphne being like right alongside her.
We love to see Daphne taking a front seat on Daphne too.
Yeah, the girls have a lot more to do in this series, which is really cool. Daphne and Velma get a lot more to, and in different ways than we've seen before too. I think especially with Daphne. Daphne has done a lot of progression and change over the years in different series, and I think this one's more subtle, but it's still enough to where you can tell, like if you watch it versus like what's new era. And I think especially to Aloha Scooby when she used her dental floss, like it was like she did all this stuff in previous series where she was trying to, which I think kind of spiraled out of the 80s, where she was trying to be a lot more independent and resourceful. Whereas I think she is, in this series, she is taking a little bit more interest in the mystery as well, I think too. In terms of actually just being more of a serious mystery solver too.
More of a team player in this series. Yeah,
and less like in just resourceful, but more so just part of the gang being active with them and trying to solve the mystery a little bit more, rather than just trying to use her feminine wiles or feminine, characteristics to get her somewhere with the gang. Which I think was nice because they brought a little bit more groundedness to her character too.
I would say she really demonstrates, sorry to go off track just a little bit, but she really demonstrates the like more liberal and artistic side that Velma doesn't have. Like she feels like the artistic knowledge and liberal knowledge that Velma doesn't display in the series.
Back up on Steve, it just occurred to me that like Velma's really kind of gone through a Barbie transformation. If we think about like Barbie's transformation in history, she was like damselish, just pretty just for looks, and then kind of did the I can do everything, I can be everything stage. But Barbie now, in contrast, and also Daphne, is like filling out and more of just like a different parts of her personality and interests are being displayed in more of than I can just do it. I can also just live my life and be it. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, agreed. I like how over the years, especially like I'd say especially Daphne and Fred have come from being a lot more just root characters that had like one sole purpose in the series to having, not that they had one sole purpose, but like one purpose that was the most, unanimously known. And I think over the years, they've had a lot more ways of being seen and being like a part of the gang and like what their personality is like, deepening their personalities and exploring different things in different series, in different timelines, maybe even arguably, and just seeing what their story is and how they play a part in the game.
I wanted to say, I feel like this series is the first one that finally, I don't know, I love the 2002 movies, but this is the first series that no longer relates Daphne to Sarah Michelle Gellar anymore. You know what I mean? Like she's completely not that
Yeah.
character anymore. Like even
That's
even
true.
Be Cool, we could feel remnants of her character in there, but this now I feel like she's gone. It's a whole new generation of Daphne now. You know what I mean?
I like how you said that because like I said with Aloha Scooby-Doo and a lot of those episodes and movies where she was doing a lot of those action sequences which came from those movies, which came from the 80s, but also really the 2002 movie where she was, what was it, studying martial arts of
Right.
sorts, and she used that a lot in the first 2 live action movies because she also played Buffy.
Right.
So
That
she
was the penultimate version of that version of Daphne.
Yeah, and her character has evolved over time, and it's definitely a different stage now than it was 10 years ago now.
Right. Each
It's
era we get a big evolution.
Yeah.
It's
agreed.
interesting because I feel like she now more relates to her voice actor than she does her live actor, because Grey Delisle is just such like she's this like she was a stand-up comedian, like she's an actor, like and Daphne, and of course we see a little bit of that in Be Cool, but like in this series I feel like just the energy of Grey Delisle is shown through Daphne so well in this series specifically, and just her spontaneity and her joy is just shown like through Daphne in this series very well.
I love that. I've never heard that comparison, I don't think. I don't know much about Grey, but it's nice to imagine Daphne's voice actor and Daphne being the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, it's happened for like almost all of them that have had like long-term relationships with like in voice acting with them. Like Matthew Lillard to me is Shaggy, and respectively so many levels. And like it's not that they take on like Shaggy, because of Matthew Lillard, is so much more Shaggy than I could ever imagine him to be, but exactly enough.
Yeah. His Discovery live action movies was gold. And I know he did a lot of like rewatch. Like I watched something on live action movies like a year or two ago, I think, and he was talking about how like he'd rewatched the series and was voice coached, I think, and tried to get to the character, and he was really interested and you can tell he has a lot of passion for the character too. Something you can always tell is he's always had a lot of passion for that character.
He definitely loves Shaggy.
Yeah, for sure, because to put in all that time to like get the voice down and really like you can tell he really enjoyed it to some extent, and he's really invested in the character, and I think that's always really cool. Frank Welker was always really intrigued in his characters, and is always talking about how much he loves all the work he's done in his career. So I think it's so cool to listen to people talk about how and see it, not only talk about their passion, but see it in their performance and how much they devote to the characters.
That's the joy of Scooby-Doo. You can feel the love of the people involved. Like it's like eating a dish made by your grandma. It's full of love. It's gonna be so good.
Yeah, and I think that's why people like this whole like series exists, is because there's so many people that want to share the love of Scooby-Doo, and I think it's like a fun idea that they have like the opportunity to be here and do it with them.
Again, I think that's why there's so much passion in the community, is because there is so much. It's easy to love a show that has a lot of love in it and a lot of like different personalities and different dynamics, because each series brings a different idea to the forefront, and and as much as it changes, it still has its roots deep down. It's all based on the same thing, and it's gone different directions from there. But I think that's why so many people love this show, love Scooby, because it's something that it really does have such a universal target, and they've done so much with it. And you can almost do anything with a dog and a gang of friends who solve mysteries or of the sorts, travels, does all these different things. There's a lot to do with that, and there's a lot of ways you can capitalize on it.
Absolutely. And people love the idea of like this unconditional love and friendship group. Like they're like unbreakable. You could never see them separated from each other. Like, yes, they have their independent spin-off shows, but never once, except for I guess they explored it a little bit in the first live action movie. Could you see that they had like any sort of like problems? But I think also I like that's aside from the point. I like that they had a conflict and they resolved it. It's one of the first times that they had an intergroup conflict and it resolved. But with this series, I appreciate coming back to this series that their personalities are being expressed as we discussed, and then we actually kind of get to understand why they are friends. Because like some people, because when you just like approach them, they don't have like anything in common as per their tropes. So it's really nice to see like how it all connects in.
That's interesting. Why are these people together? You're right. They are also different. What brought this group together to like go on adventures together?
Yeah. There's been a lot of origin stories. I mean, I know it's easy to get off track.
It's okay.
But there's a lot of origin stories, and they've done Scoob, they've done Daphne and Velma, they've done what else they've done?
Mystery
The Mystery
Begins.
Yeah, Pup Named Scooby-Doo. I didn't already say that, but so it's kind of, I think it's up to interpretation. I think though it's such a great message to send to people, because it's really, you don't have to be the same type of person to find connections, to find people that you really work well with. Sometimes the people that are most dynamically different from you, you work well with because they offer something that you don't have. And so you can get a lot of dynamic and a lot of difference. And so that there's like a lot of opposite energy in the gang. And they really, they're opposites, but they attract into a group. It's sort of like off that saying, but they really are just different people. They're all kind of living their own lives, and they kind of ended up finding each other one way or another, or whatever you want to believe. And and you can tell in a lot of series, a lot of movies, you can tell they're friends first, which I think is always important to watch. Is they're not just there to solve mysteries. They don't just have one focus and everything is aside. They actually enjoy doing it with each other, and building off each other's strengths.
A series with like guest stars is a great way to express it even more, because you're bringing in a new dynamic each episode, and it's really important to address that like each character has a different interaction with this person that's coming into the episode. It would be awkward if not. And so like having the guest stars is really effective.
Right, every character gets their 5 or 10 seconds with the guest, no matter what.
I think you're right too, because and that also shows like how cohesive that group is, even though they all get to express how they feel about a certain character. Like, as we'll see in the next episode, there's some interesting reviews on how they interact with that character. But like, it's great because then you can see that still, like how by contrast, you see how solid they are as well.
Yes,
super awesome.
Agreed. Anytime they go with anyone else, any other character really, guest stars, supposed relatives, friends, whatever, they don't change. They know who they are, and they're not like, oh, I need to be like that person. And even if they have a moment like that, occasionally, I think that's happened before. They rely on each other. You can tell that they're a team dynamic. So if they start to doubt themselves, they know to turn to the rest of the gang. They are a family, essentially, a family of mystery solvers, friends, but they really have history and backstory, and I think that's always to be remembered as well.
Friends is the family that you choose,
Yes, exactly. Agreed. And they really and a lot of times, there's a lot of dynamic. There's a lot of different stories and different ways that the show has supposedly formed in terms of the characters and meeting and all that, but it's always based on the same principle. I think that they really trust each other. They really like what they do together.
So back to the question we were at, how about Richard, did you expect Teller to be the villain?
I have gotten pretty good at guessing these things,
Mhm.
and actually for this episode, it was like I had a feeling right when spoiler right when he gets like pulled into the box at the end. Like
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah. I understood it then, but I actually think that the red herrings in this episode were really weird, but it worked because there was no other alternative
Mhm.
for what it
Yeah.
could be.
Right, because it all
So-
happens in like the vacuum of this like doomsday building.
Right.
There is
Yeah,
only so many options.
Like no one else is supposed to be here
There's-
anyway.
There's the weird old man who, spoiler again, ends up being Teller, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's the woman who comes up to the building, and I forget what she says she is. She's this
She
woman
wants to
that
take
comes in.
pictures because the
to
building
take-
is being demolished.
Yes, her. And then I mean, Penn Teller usually with the gang, but they're the only other people there. So except for those people that were there initially that left the building supposedly, the two contract workers or the two
Construction workers.
construction
The
workers,
guys
yes.
setting up the bombs,
Contract
whatever
workers.
they were.
Yeah, the construction workers, yes.
Yeah.
So it was a very empty, big building. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, but there's not a lot of people we were introduced to that we could guess it would be.
I feel like they never really gave us the scale of the building very well. Like, yeah, we know it's a
No.
big building, but I feel like every scene sort of felt like they were in a small room. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and then
I didn't have
sometimes it
much
felt
of a
like
sense of scale.
sometimes it
only
also felt like they were
large-
walking long hallways too.
Mhm.
Like that
The
didn't
only
end.
large- Like the only large sort of scenery they had was the theater.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I
And
think
there was that one scene-
oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, I just thought that because, well, when I saw that it was a big building,
Mhm.
it just like gives you the idea that anything can happen inside of it because there's so much happening. We're only seeing a select bit. So
Right.
like my whole thought was someone's going to show up because there's so many places to be in a place that's so big, but then you're constantly reminded that like this is a small space and they're occupying only the spots. So my idea the entire time was someone's going to come in just like surprise out of the corners
Waiting
of
for them
nowhere,
to jump
which
out of
did happen,
nowhere.
but it wasn't who they thought. It wasn't the person in the first place.
Yeah. I think that's really true. And it is curious that they chose to, they chose to make it like the building was gonna be closing. Like their closing soon, like they were going to get rid of this building. I think that's a very interesting choice by the writers, because then they're intentionally trying to set up that there's a smaller space. But yeah, but the writers chose to make it a closing building. And so there's select characters, there's select things they can do with that. And so I think they were trying to set up that there would be almost no one. They were almost intentionally trying to point out that there would be few suspects, that they'd have to almost go to no one but Penn and Teller or one of them. Or
Yeah, didn't they do this in Riva Ras Regas as well? Like, if I'm not wrong, it also
Yeah.
all happens in the container of like one building.
it did.
It could be like I could be wrong, but I remember there was like something to do with like construction or
It
rubble
was.
or
in that
like
one- It was Lindsay Pagano, and it was like the giant like concert or whatever. And then they had like a bunch of people there, but it was like the magician. It was the magician's assistant who ended up being, I can't remember her name, but she ended up being the culprit in the end of the episode. But it was all, you're right, it was all in one setting.
which is
The
wild because
construction-
there's so much of Vegas to cover. And like as your
Yeah.
background, I keep looking at your background being like, there's so much that they could have
Right.
done with the rest of Vegas.
Yeah.
What's interesting
could've-
is that both episodes have to do with a demolished building. The first
Mhm.
episode starts with the magic trick being the magic trick occurring in a building that is being demolished as the episode occurs.
Mhm.
Like it's the beginning of the episode, and that's like is what the ghost is supposedly. And then like this building is also being demolished in this episode. And for a second I was like, okay, what if like the building being demolished is like the beginning of the next step of the episode, like that previously happened, like in an alternate universe.
Well, we gotta watch
Yeah,
those
I like
episodes one after another. Let's see if it
Really?
flows into each other.
Literally.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I had the random idea too of like going off of what Miree said, or Velma, the atmosphere was so big in Vegas and they could done a lot with the setting. But I was thinking like a chase scene through different hotels and like different like just different like buildings and like all around like the different like settings of Vegas would be like really fun. Like using a lot more of the space outside because Vegas is so visually like interesting. So they could have done a lot with, you know, going out and exploring more, or that could be something else they want to do later on, who knows, but
Yeah,
I feel like they don't
it's not
want to
easy.
go on the streets. They're afraid to go on the streets of Vegas. You know, it's not kid friendly.
Well, and also I guess it could be their age. I mean, they're just high school supposedly, and I mean, and if we're going off what we can assume, I guess they're high school students in the series, maybe questionable. I don't know, but they're like in their late teens, early 20s, maybe mid 20s, questionably. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, who
You're
knows
not
what they
wrong.
want.
I just realized this. It's like really don't know how old they are ever.
Yeah, you don't. They go back and forth. Like in Zombie Island, they're adults, but then they're also not in like the Return to Zombie Island because of nothing going off point, but just how they always they're different ages. So there's usually like they're usually in their 20s in a lot of like different movie series, but they also change and fluctuate.
Yeah.
I've heard like 16s, like 15, 16, 17, and then 22,
Usually,
and then like 27. Like I've heard those three specifically. For like if it's being announced in a series, I've heard those numbers specifically.
yeah.
Amorphously under 30. Where is my
Right.
middle-aged like Scooby gang?
Well,
Scooby Apocalypse.
I wouldn't mind having them again. I feel like we had at least late 20s for like Zombie Island. I would say like that was at least late 20s, early 30s, I think, for a lot of them.
They had their lives established. And definitely Scooby-Doo, you know, Spooky Island and Monsters Unleashed. They were mature. Like Shaggy's going gray a little bit, you know.
Yeah, there's iterations, but there hasn't been a ton. So it'd be fun to see them go back and like explore them in different different timelines and also different stages in their life, solve mysteries and see. I think that's also true is if you look at different ages, I think that also sometimes corresponds with how they are in that series or in that movie versus other movies with the same kind of around the same that take place around the same time. Theoretically, is that they exhibit a lot of those traits, and then when they're younger, they're a little bit more, you know, they're different, and when they're older, they're a little bit more matured and in touch with something else. But it's always kind of changing.
There's a series by Hirebradford that is like, I think this is all Hirebradford work, by the way, but the premise of it is that Vincent Van Gogh is like looking into the different timelines of the Scooby Gang and like the different iterations, and he like there's episodes that explore their relationship with hot dog water, and then there's episodes that explore like all their different ages and different timelines and universes, and it's just like a really cool idea, and it would be a really cool idea to explore. So like kudos to Hirebradford.
Right, definitely check out him on Instagram, or his website I think is Bradford Writes Scooby. Hey, what are your final thoughts on the Cursed Cabinet of Professor Mads Markson? Let's go, Velma.
Ooh, can we give like a rating with it as well?
Yeah, rating
Sure.
out of 10 or out of 5, you decide.
Okay, so like for me, it's like a solid 7. And even though I really enjoyed kind of like the adventure that happens, and it's like pretty like seamless, like things keep happening, it's one of those things, because now I've watched it I think 6 times in a row, and I think this is my fault a little bit, that like it kind of loses its like magical force. Like it's not one of those episodes that like I have an urge to watch this again. So
Yeah.
like, yeah. You know what? Like the next one I'm gonna talk about, like there's a little bit more urge because it's just so yeah. So like
Yeah.
anyways, I would give it a 7 out of 10. I think that it's really colorful, it's really bright. The animation's kind of like stiffening up, it's getting to be where it needs to be. And yeah, plot's starting to like form well too.
I want to say before I forget, I've been wanting to say this. The character expressions in this episode, like, oh my God, Vilma's faces and her body movements, they are so on point. It's beautiful. Like that really catches my eye watching this show. Like they're not just characters standing there. They're doing stuff, they're moving, their eyes are moving. You know, that really makes you want to keep watching it. Not just the background. The backgrounds are amazing and beautiful in this series too, but the characters as well are really showing some life, which I love to see. What do you think what's your final thoughts and ratings, Steve?
So I enjoyed this episode. I think it was for me, it boosted up how much I enjoyed the series and in my idea of potential and where they could go. And I saw a lot more that they explored. Again, I will say that, like Leary said, there's a lot of room for things to, even get more interesting. And I think for me, it was more of a groundbreaking episode to see more potential. And I think they explored that more. So I think I'll go pretty similar. I'm gonna go with the 7.5, just because I think I did see, I'll give it like an extra half point only because I think I see like potential. But again, I also don't think it was something that there's a lot to be explored, a lot more to be done. But it was a fun atmosphere, pretty good guest star combination too. I enjoyed Penn Teller, thought they were funny and enjoyable and with the gang, and so I'm kind of at this point I'm excited to move forward. This is like an episode that really this kind of pushed me forward to say what's next. So that's my final thoughts, I guess.
So we got a 7.5. What do you think, Richie?
I'm also gonna say 7 with that because I agree with the previous statements about the episode being really well done, and it's like bringing us more into the series, and it's really solidifying a couple things.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the character interactions, but yeah, the character interactions are really fun. But the thing that brings it down just a little bit is like the pace of it, and then the like lack of use of potential scenery.
Yeah.
Even though it had some beautiful scenery, it didn't necessarily use even like your background.
Yeah, they didn't use
like
it a lot.
1 second.
It was just like a zoom by shot. This is from a zoom by shot they kind of did when they were in a machine. I agree that they could have done more with the atmosphere, I think, and just I think giving more color into the backdrops and dispersing more of the atmosphere.
Yeah, one thing I was gonna say, this whole entire episode had gray backgrounds. When they were in the hotel, it was all gray backgrounds, like the red theater.
You open up with all these backdrops, and then you go into like the hotel or the buildings, and it's like it's a lot more like dark reds and grays, and just a lot more simple colors and simple.
I mean, I think it fits the fact that the building is literally not supposed to be occupied.
Yeah,
it's not supposed to be lived in. So
it does.
It works with the episode, but it just like
everything
the color
is connected.
So
it does. It works for what they were trying to do. I know what you mean. It works for what it was trying to do, but not maybe for like what they could have done to make it more interesting. Yeah. Like I think I feel the same way.
Riva Ras Regas, just a final thought here. Riva Ras Regas had amazing coloring, like the lights on the stage, the game corner. Yeah, it was wonderful. But
it was a really beautiful episode in terms of just like use of like that series. What's this you do is very like colorful and bright and like they used that was like just beginning of like all the digital. That was towards the beginning of all the digital technology for animation and for them, and so.
It was their first show after being gone for a decade.
That and I think Cyber Chase for like the first time they really had animated and and they play a lot with colors and a lot of different things. They're like, oh, we can do all this now. So I think, and it really shows in that series. It still holds up very well, and it's still one of my favorites because it's so colorful and so fun. But getting off topic again. But yeah,
It's okay.
Yeah. I love that they've moved past that only the dark can be spooky genre. And like have really like, you know, because I like films that are like really creepy but also like really light. Like I've never watched Midsummer, but like that's kind of like the spooky energy that I'm talking about. Like everything is fine, but it's not. Something's wrong, and I like that kind of stuff.
I should watch that too. I haven't seen it. But yes.
What are we talking about?
Midsummer. It's a horror movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like a horror. So you like horror then?
I don't.
I would say that I'm all right with horror.
Because I really like horror. So I was gonna say if that's the thing.
I bet you if you watch it, you could find at least one Scooby-Doo reference in that movie.
You can find and that's funny because they do a lot of Scooby-Doo references in movies and in culture now and all the time.
I watched something the other day
casually,
and there was a Scooby reference in it, and I was like, "Hello."
Has anyone seen the movie The Heat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you remember that scene where they bring up? They're like, "Oh no, Scooby, Velma and Daphne got captured." They make that joke that went offline in the movie too. So if anyone hasn't seen the movie, it's a funny movie, but also just that I had to make that reference they made. It's just one of those kind of like punny kind of lines, but they make a lot of.
If anything exists, it's gonna reference Scooby-Doo. That's my rule. If an artist makes an album, oh yes.
Where we do it, we like find our like Scooby examples. We can rate it.
Yeah.
That'd be so fun.
There's so many Scooby references out there. It's crazy. I can't. I want to chronicle all of them, but it's like everything I watch. I watch a lot of TV. That's my favorite thing. Everything I watch, there's Scooby references. I'll hear random songs. There'll be a Scooby-Doo reference in the random song. I'm like, what? You know?
Yeah.
So Scooby-Doo is, you know, as Eddie Izzard said, it's our international passport.
Yes, it is.
The whole world knows Shaggy and Scooby.
And it's been around for forever, and it's still pushing, and it's now it's the most popular, arguably most popular cartoon of all time. At least. Maybe. And now, I mean, you know,
I think it's now, like the most like survivable one.
Yeah, it's the most survivable one, and it has, that's a better way of phrasing the way I did, but it's had so many iterations, and it's pushed through so many different decades and generations now that it's
adaptable,
becoming,
you know.
It is.
There's one thing that I was worried about is that, like, because you know how like cartoons like die after a certain period of time, like and like you run out of those characters. It's great that you can like share something generationally with like someone who's younger than you and also older than you.
Yeah, and see, the thing is about a lot of those cartoons, and this is I'm just going to try and make this quick, briefly off topic, but you know, a lot of cartoons, whether or not I like them or not, there's a lot of great cartoons or shows that, you know, don't end up continuing forward. And I think that has to do with, you know, them being a part of their time era. And the thing about Scooby is, even though it's been part of its time era, it's not timeless. Revolved around it's not revolved around the time era. It adjusts to the time era. It is a very simple like plot that can be put into so many different, you know, they can make it work for almost any generation of audience,
right?
Which I think the reason why it keeps going, it's staying so strong, is because, you know, it is so adaptable, and I think that's why people love it. Is it gives them a lot of the things that people love, like, you know, really good comedy, friendship, you know, mysteries, even a little bit, you know, at times a little bit of spooky stuff. You know, it has so many different things ingrained into it that appeal to people, and it's so applicable that you can put it in any
it's got that predictable formula that you can go back to the very first episode of Scooby-Doo or the most recent episode, and they would both fit the same formula.
Yeah, and that's the thing I like too, is a lot of the older episodes, even though you can tell there's like things that would not be done today, made the same way, they're still almost as, I think they hold up just as well, despite all the, the cultural differences, like the library, them being a lot more in libraries, or, the way that they would not use technology. It's still, I think, it still works really well. And I think,
Velma
I like
always
that a
has
lot.
an iPad instead of a book now.
Yeah, she used to always be in the library, or always used to try to like do things a lot more like manually. Now she's using a lot more digital. She's becoming a little bit more of a tech nerd in a lot of the more recent iterations. So, but I think it's fun to see how the characters evolve with the times too, like what their taste in things and music, also music references. Like I think at one point in like the 70s or 80s, Shaggy said something about going to the Bee Gees or something, and now they probably like all sorts of different music and all sorts of different things. So it's fun to see them do different things like that.
Shaggy and Scoob listening to NPR was the most hilarious thing.
Yeah.
Boy, okay. I could see him listening to that,
Thank you for listening to the Guess Who Discussion Hour Reboot Part 1. Tune in for Part 2 next Friday, March 18th, where we discuss when Urkelbots go bad and the fastest fast food fiend. We'll see you on the next episode of Daphne 2 Presents The Pod.
Thanks for joining Daphne 2 Presents.